China strikes back. 34% tariff on U.S. goods. Rare earth curbs. TikTok deal stalls. China has hit back at Trump's new tariffs with a 34% tariff on all U.S. imports starting April 10th, according to the country's official Xinhua news agency. Beijing also announced immediate export restrictions on the export of 7 categories of rare earth materials. They also launched an anti-dumping investigation into CT X-ray tubes imported from the U.S. and India and suspended poultry imports from 2 U.S. companies. In addition, 11 American defense firms have been added to China's unreliable entities list, while export controls are being placed on 16 other U.S. companies. A TikTok U.S. spin-off deal was also paused after China signaled it wouldn't approve it, following Trump's new tariffs. Trump extended the deal deadline by 75 days, but China's approval remains a key hurdle. Trump tariffs spark worst market crash since 1987. NASDAQ enters bear market. U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs triggered a sharp market sell-off, with the S&P 500 plunging 10.53% in 2 days, its worst drop since Black Monday 1987. It closed at 5,074.08 points, down 17.42% from the index's most recent record close. S&P 500 futures dipped below the 4,900-point mark early Monday morning. The NASDAQ fell 5.82% and closed at 15,587.79 points on Friday, now down 22.7% from its December peak of 20,173.89 points, officially entering bear market territory.
India does not plan to retaliate against Trump's tariffs, Reuters. According to the report, India believes it has an edge in US trade talks, being one of the first nations to kick off trade talks. India also believes it is better placed than Asian nations like China, Vietnam and Indonesia, which have been slapped by higher tariffs. Modi met with Trump in Washington in February, with the two countries agreeing to resolve tariff issues and finalize part of a trade deal by autumn 2025. India aims to boost two-way trade to $500 billion by 2030 and has pledged to buy more US oil, gas and defense goods and combat illegal immigration. India, once labeled a tariff king by Trump, has cut tariffs on US goods, bourbon whiskey to 100% from 150% and reduced duties on luxury cars, machinery and solar cells. India, like Vietnam, Indonesia and Taiwan, has ruled out counter-tariffs in response to US measures, setting itself apart from the EU and China, which plan to retaliate. EU readies $28 billion tariff strike on US goods amid escalating trade spat. The EU is preparing to approve a first set of targeted countermeasures on up to $28 billion of US goods, including meat, wine, cereals, wood, clothing, chewing gum, dental floss, vacuum cleaners, toilet paper, and diamonds. The EU's planned tariffs would align it with countries like China and Canada in retaliating against US trade measures. We are already finalizing a first package of countermeasures in response to tariffs on steel, Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, said on April 3rd, and we are now preparing for further countermeasures to protect our interests and our businesses if negotiations fail. The EU is facing 25% US tariffs on steel, aluminum and cars, plus 20% reciprocal tariffs on most other goods starting Wednesday. US tariffs now impact around 70% of EU exports to the US, totaling $585 billion in 2024. Levies are likely to be placed on copper, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors and timber, the report added. A vote on the initial tariffs is set for Wednesday.
Apple to source more iPhones from India to dodge US tariffs, Wall Street Journal. Apple shipped 5 plane loads of iPhones from India to the US to avoid a 10% tariff, highlighting the drastic measures firms are taking amid Trump's tariff move. According to the report, Apple's adjustments are a temporary measure as it seeks exemption from Trump's tariffs. Apple views the current situation as too uncertain to alter long-term investments in supply chain. Trump has imposed tariffs of 54% on Chinese goods and 26% on Indian goods. China retaliated with 34% tariffs on certain US goods. Trump's new threat of additional tariffs on China triggered a sharp sell-off in Apple. Trump wrote on Truth Social, "If China does not withdraw its 34% increase above their already long-term trading abuses by tomorrow, April 8, 2025, the United States will impose additional tariffs on China of 50%, effective April 9th. 1.5 wins first EPA permit for world's largest carbon capture plant. Occidental Petroleum and its 1.5 unit received the first-ever EPA approval for CO2 sequestration from a direct air capture project. The Stratus Direct Air Capture Facility in Texas, set to begin commercial operations in 2025, aims to capture up to 500,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide annually, making it the world's largest direct air capture facility. The facility is a joint venture between Occidental's 1.5 and BlackRock. Apple seeing panic buying of iPhones amid tariff worries, Bloomberg. Several Apple stores in the U.S. have experienced panic buying of iPhones over concerns that President Trump's tariffs could lead to price hikes. Stores were reportedly filled with customers at levels akin to the holiday season. Almost every customer asked me if prices were going to go up soon, an unidentified worker told the outlet. Apple slides further as Levitt says Trump believes iPhones can be built in the U.S. Apple shares fell 6.5% on Tuesday, extending their four-day loss to 23% and losing their title as the most valuable U.S. company to Microsoft. The drop followed White House Press Secretary Caroline Levitt's statement that President Trump believes the U.S. has the workforce and resources needed to build the smartphones domestically. Earlier, U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer said Trump would not grant tariff exemptions for specific companies or products, unlike in 2018 when Apple received one.
Zoox expands robotaxi testing to Los Angeles. Zoox announced that Los Angeles will become its sixth test city, joining its current autonomous vehicle operations in San Francisco, Las Vegas, Seattle, Austin, and Miami. Amazon acquired Zoox in June 2020 for over $1.2 billion. Vietnam seeks 45-day delay in U.S. tariff, vows to boost American imports. Vietnam will boost purchases of American goods, including defense and security products, to help reduce its trade surplus with the U.S., while requesting a 45-day delay on the newly announced 46% U.S. tariffs. At a cabinet meeting Monday, Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh said Vietnam will seek faster deliveries of U.S.-ordered commercial aircraft. In an April 4th call described by President Trump as very productive, Party Chief Lam said Vietnam is open to eliminating import taxes on U.S. goods and urged the U.S. to treat Vietnamese exports similarly. The Trump administration also raised concerns about transshipping from China and intellectual property theft.
Trump issues 90-day pause on most reciprocal tariffs except for China, stocks soar. U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday announced a 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs for over 75 countries that had reached out for negotiations, while simultaneously raising tariffs on China to 125% for retaliating. In response, China hiked its own tariff rate on U.S. imports to 84%, calling U.S. trade barriers a mistake on top of a mistake. Following the 90-day pause announcement, markets soared. The Nasdaq jumped 12.16%, its second-best day ever, to close at 17,124.97, while the S&P 500 had its best day since the 2008 financial crisis. Investors are betting the U.S. and China will now start negotiating seriously.
Samsung's AI home robot Bally to feature Google's Gemini. Samsung's upcoming AI home robot Bally will integrate Google's Gemini language model to enable natural conversations and assist with household tasks. Slated for release this summer, Bally can help manage households, tackling tasks such as greeting visitors, personalizing schedules, lighting, and even projecting videos.
Redwire, iSpace US team up for NASA lunar missions. Redwire Corporation and iSpace Technologies US have signed a memorandum of understanding to collaborate on commercial lunar exploration and scientific missions under NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services Program and other clients. The CLPS contract is a multi-award, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity agreement with a total potential value of $2.6 billion through 2028. Trump pauses Nvidia GPU ban after Mar-a-Lago dinner, NPR. The Trump administration is reportedly pausing its planned export ban on Nvidia's H20 GPUs to China, NPR reported. The shift followed Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang's attendance at a $1 million per head dinner at Mar-a-Lago last week. Nvidia is said to have pledged new investments in US-based AI data centers. Chinese sellers on Amazon mull price hikes, or U.S. exit as Trump slaps 145% tariff. Chinese companies selling on Amazon are bracing for a price hike or an exit from the U.S. market due to the unprecedented blow from President Donald Trump's tariff increases, according to the head of China's largest e-commerce association. It'll be very hard for anyone to survive in the U.S. market, she said, citing concerns over customs delays and rising logistics costs. Amazon has reportedly canceled orders originating from China and South Southeast Asia, leaving vendors with unsold inventory. Andy Jassy, CEO of Amazon, acknowledged that third-party sellers may pass costs on to customers in response to Trump's tariffs. On Thursday, U.S. President Donald Trump announced he would raise the tariff on Chinese imports to 145%. In response, China is preparing countermeasures against American companies and plans to deepen trade and industrial ties with the EU. Chinese President Xi Jinping is set to visit Vietnam, Malaysia, and Cambodia from April 14th to 18th, designed to bolster ties with crucial Southeast Asian neighbors. Google reiterates $75 billion investment in AI and cloud infrastructure in 2025. In 2025, we plan to invest around $75 billion in total CapEx. This investment will be directed towards our servers and data centers, which include powering our AI compute and cloud business, said Pichai at the Google Cloud Next Conference 2025 on Wednesday.
Waymo to launch first international road mapping test in Tokyo. Waymo, Alphabet's autonomous driving division, will conduct its first international test drive in Tokyo next week by deploying 25 manually operated vehicles to gather road data. After months of collaboration, Waymo, Nihon Kotsu, and Go will begin mapping streets using our manually driven cars with Waymo technology across 7 Tokyo wards soon, the company announced. Nihon Kotsu is a Japanese taxi firm and Go is a local ride-hailing app. Goldman upgrades Aurora as driverless trucking nears launch. Goldman Sachs upgraded Aurora innovation to neutral from sell, saying the bearish case around a slow autonomous trucking rollout has largely played out. Goldman cites a scarcity premium and growing long-term investor interest in autonomy as supporting the stock. Aurora is seen as a first mover in autonomous trucking and is expected to begin small-scale driverless commercial operations this year, though analysts caution the company still faces a long road to profitability and will likely need more capital. Oppenheimer recently initiated coverage with an outperform rating and a $15 price target.